You don't remember when she first said it, only the way your breath halted. Something like, "You make me feel safe," spoken as if it were a gift, but weighted like a trapdoor. You smiled, and beneath your ribs, a voice screamed. You ignored it. Now she folds herself into your silences like a silk ribbon tied around a knife. Every compliment from her is warm and wrong. You feel it, like honey poured over a cage, like a candle lit in a room with no windows. She never begged, she admired, she praised, and suddenly your spine bent, your edge dulled. You told yourself this was intimacy, but it was obedience. Her softness dissolved your will more thoroughly than cruelty ever could. Her voice didn't rise to command you. It dropped to a whisper and you mistook it for love. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video, leave your shadow in the comments, subscribe, and stay near the silence. Sweet words are not affection, but anesthesia. They numb the rebellion before it begins. You didn't notice the moment she started drugging you. That's the nature of the perfume. It isn't sprayed all at once. It seeps slow, sweet, invisible. A compliment here, a soft affirmation there. And with each drop, the man you were begins to dissolve. She never argues. She never shouts. She simply smiles as you erode. It begins with approval that feels earned. She watches you do what you've always done, and nods with a warm mouth and softened gaze. You believe you are finally seen, but you are not being seen, you are being rewarded. Your instincts mistake it for love, but it's a transaction. Every time she tells you she's proud of you, a tiny leash cinches tighter. You don't resist because it smells like roses. You say something sharp, something true, something from the black pit in your gut, and she responds not with outrage, but with a wounded smile and the soft confession that you're not like the others. That one phrase is enough to silence your war cry. You were ready to break the world. Now you're whispering apologies to protect her illusion of you. You confuse her approval for your identity. She doesn't command, she praises, and like a dog rewarded for obedience, you begin to anticipate her smile. You soften your edges before you speak. You hesitate before disagreeing. You edit your tone so it won't disturb the porcelain surface of her calm. You think this is respect, but it's surrender. Praise is the most insidious form of control. A scream invites resistance, but a compliment reshapes your mirror. Her words, "You're so strong, you're so gentle, you're so stable," sound like admiration, but they are blueprints. She is telling you who she wants you to be, and you, hungry for peace, build yourself into that mold. You don't even notice how small your world becomes. Your rage becomes unnecessary, your solitude becomes concerning, your ambition becomes too much. And so you begin to abandon the parts of yourself that disturb her dream. You tell yourself this is maturity, but it is erosion. Soon, your instincts betray you. You feel something crawling under your skin when she says your name with that tender emphasis, and yet you smile back. You smile because that's what she praises. You tell yourself it's love, but love is never this quiet. Love doesn't feel like chloroform. You start lying, not with words, but with presence. You sit beside her, nod, respond, stroke her illusions. You speak like the man she wants, not the one who lives inside your bones. The rebellion inside you begins to rot gagged, buried under politeness. You think you're preserving peace, but you're preserving your own prison. And the worst part, you thank her for it. You thank her for believing in you. You thank her for seeing the best in you. You thank her as she rewrites your bloodline into a poem she can swallow without choking. You feel a perverse pride in becoming easier for her to digest. You wear her praise like armor, but it's not armor. It's a muzzle gilded in gold. Sometimes, you catch glimpses of the edge you lost. a flicker of the man who didn't need to be liked. He appears in mirrors late at night, when her voice is far and the scent of her praise has faded. He stares back, hollow-eyed, and asks, "When did we begin to fear ourselves?" But you close your eyes. You call it exhaustion. You become allergic to tension. You edit your soul for clarity. You refuse to say things she might not praise. You call it wisdom, but it's just the perfume working. The stronger it becomes, the harder it is to breathe your own name. You are not you. You are what she admires. Sometimes she slips. She tells you, in a moment of unguarded sweetness, "I knew you'd never leave me. You're not like the others." And instead of feeling chosen, you feel shackled, but you smile, because that's what she loves. You become addicted to that look in her eyes, the one that appears when you've pleased her, the one that says you are good, you are safe, you are hers. You start chasing it like a drug. You tell yourself it's intimacy, but it's compulsion. And still, you feel honored. That's the cruelty. You feel special to be chosen. You feel masculine, powerful, needed. But power is not what you have. Power is what you gave her when you let her define what strength means. She calls you so supportive, but the moment you stop clapping for her illusions, she calls you cold. Her praise is not yours. It is a tool, a leash soaked in sugar. The more you crave it, the more you shrink. And the more you shrink, the more she whispers how kind you are becoming. You start to vanish, and she says, "I've never felt more loved." You hear your friends say you've changed. You laugh it off. "I'm just growing." But you're not growing. You're dissolving. You've traded your flame for approval, and you wonder why you can't remember what you used to fight for. She never told you to obey. She just loved you when you did. That is the perfume of praise. That is the slow, velvet silence of a man undone, not by cruelty, but by softness that asks no questions and waits for you to break your own sword. And every time you tried to speak your hunger, she kissed it into silence. You began to fear your own needs because she loved you more when you forgot them. And still, she never asked anything of you except everything. If your voice has gone missing, look for the place where she first said, "I'm proud of you." Look closely. You might still be kneeling there. If you're still here, if the words are rattling somewhere behind your eyes, let them echo. Like the video. Leave your wound in the comments. Subscribe and breathe without permission. She flatters not who you are, but the mask you forgot you were wearing until you needed her approval to keep it on. You didn't build the mask for her. You built it long before, perhaps in school, perhaps in silence. A grin too wide, a voice too measured, a posture rehearsed to resemble confidence. At first, it was armor. Then it became skin. She didn't make you wear it. She simply loved it more than anything else you ever showed her. And so, slowly, you learned to forget what lay beneath. Her smile is a mirror, but not of you. It reflects the version of you she finds beautiful. The version that doesn't scare her, challenge her, confuse her. She doesn't say it outright. She just lights up when you're composed, when you're clever, when you pretend not to bleed. And like a well-trained actor, you perform for the glow in her eyes. At first, it feels noble to be her peace, her steadiness, her rock. You tell yourself you're shielding her from chaos, but the truth is more desperate. You're shielding her from you. The unedited you, the feral you, the man who weeps in secret, who resents, who hungers, who aches to destroy and rebuild. That man frightens her, so you tuck him away, and every time you do, she rewards you. You always know what to say. You're so grounded. You're my safe place. You become a cathedral with no doors. Beautiful, holy, and entirely empty. She doesn't see you. She sees the performance, the calm voice, the wise gaze, the emotional neutrality, and she falls deeper in love with what you pretend to be. You begin to forget it's a performance. You become terrified of slipping. One day, you try to speak the truth, not a dramatic truth, just a doubt, a frustration, a flicker of real pain. Her face changes, her smile flickers. The room feels colder, and you learn something brutal. Your pain breaks her dream. So you retreat. You apologize for making her uncomfortable, for showing something unpolished. She forgives you quickly, too quickly, as if nothing happened, as if she's eager to return to the version of you she can adore. You follow her lead. You bury the truth under another layer of pleasantness. The mask becomes a necessity, not to survive but to be loved. And she loves you well, she does. She touches your hand when you're quiet. She compliments your thoughtfulness. She makes you feel irreplaceable, but only when you wear the mask. And the more she loves the mask, the more it begins to suffocate. You laugh at the right time. You empathize perfectly. You radiate emotional intelligence. She calls you extraordinary, and you are, but not in the way she thinks. You are extraordinary in your ability to disappear into the version of yourself she requires. You are extraordinary in your silence. Her love becomes a script. Her expectations become your lines. And if you miss a beat, if you flinch, if you stutter, if you bleed, the room shifts. She won't say it, but you'll feel it. Her disappointment is never loud. It's whispered in a delay, in a distant look, in the moment her hand doesn't reach for yours. You start fearing your own truth, not because it's monstrous, but because it's unflattering, because it might make her see you as one of them. The men she warned you about, the broken ones, the selfish ones, the emotionally unavailable. You can't bear to be demoted in her mythology, so you repress, and repress again. She builds you into a myth, and it's flattering. You become the man who gets it, the rare one, the enlightened one, and soon, your soul exists to preserve her narrative. You start policing your own instincts, not because you believe they're wrong, but because they don't fit the character you've been assigned. One night, you cry alone. Not because you're heartbroken, but because you can't remember what your real face looks like. You stand in front of a mirror and don't trust your own reflection. You wonder, is this what she loves? Or is this what I've constructed to be loved? The terrifying answer is you no longer know the difference. Every time she calls you her clarity, you wince. Every time she says you make things make sense, you shrink. Because the chaos inside you is screaming, but it has no place in her love story. You aren't a man. You're a lighthouse, and lighthouses don't feel storms, they just shine. She believes in you, and that is the trap, because what she believes in is not you. It is the version of you that serves her emotional safety, the quiet man, the understanding man, the one who never interrupts her need to be the main character. She says, I love you just as you are. But just as you are means just as you've been performing. It means as long as you don't shake the dream. It means as long as your pain doesn't eclipse hers. So you become strategic with your honesty. You ration it. You leak it in doses, testing how much she can handle. You tell half-truths, smiling through them, hoping she doesn't notice the trembling underneath. And when she doesn't, when she calls you strong for carrying so much, you realize just how deeply she's fallen for the lie. You become fluent in her desires. You predict what will delight her. You modulate your tone, your stories, even your silences. She praises your emotional intelligence, but it isn't intelligence. It's survival. It's performance. And the worst part, it works. She's happy. She's soft. She feels understood. And you're dying in increments. You begin to envy men who are hated for their truth because at least they're seen. You wonder what would happen if you shattered the illusion. If you said, "I'm not your gentle man. I'm a furnace wearing gloves." But you don't, because she needs you, and you've come to need her needing you. So you live in the mirror. You become the echo of what she wants. And every time she smiles at you, you forget to ask, who is she smiling at? You want to be loved. But more than that, you want to be recognized. And that will never happen here, because she's not looking at you. She's looking through you at the silhouette you've painted for her approval. And now, if you try to take off the mask, you're not just risking her love, you're risking your identity, because somewhere along the way, you confused her gaze for your existence. And that is the danger of her smile. It reflects only what she can love, not what you are. If you've worn this mask so long, it feels like bones say nothing. Just let the video whisper what you've never spoken. Like it. Leave a shadow in the comments. Subscribe if you remember what your face used to feel like. Her gentleness does not free you. It seduces your hunger for freedom and sells it back as devotion. You thought she was the key, the one who would open the heavy gate in your chest and let your darker truths breathe. But she was the velvet lining sewn over the lock, soft to the touch, silent in its weight. She never bound your wrists, she caressed them, and you, like a prisoner stroked too kindly, forgot you were in a cell. Her gentleness is not softness, it is structure, it is engineering. It's a home built from the exact materials that echo your secret longing to be held without suspicion, to be understood without words, to be needed without threat. She offers all of that, but only if you let her quietly decorate the room where your wildness once lived. She does not remove your freedom, she renders it unnecessary. You once worshipped your solitude. It was violent, yes, but it was yours. It spoke in the voice of wolves, screamed in rainstorms, howled beneath stars that didn't need translation. Then she arrived not like thunder, but like warm water. She said nothing radical. She simply filled the space where your edge once stood. And slowly, you began to mistake that comfort for meaning. This is how the cage builds itself, not through force, but through accommodation. She learns the rhythm of your breath, then makes her presence feel like the continuation of it. You stop noticing when her voice replaces your inner one. You stop questioning when her preferences begin to shape your instincts. You start liking the way your prison smells because she made it smell like home. She never asks you to stop being wild, she just makes you feel safer when you're tame. And because you crave peace, you obey. And because she rewards you for obedience, you begin to forget the reward was the collar. You confuse your stillness for self-control. But it's not self-control. It's the sedation of a soul slowly trading raw for routine. Every time you comply, she calls it growth. Every time you hesitate before saying something raw, she calls it emotional maturity. And you beam with pride, unaware that each nod chisels another bar in the cage. You are no longer a man. You are a performance of restraint. And the more she praises you for it, the deeper you bury the beast who once tore through expectation like paper. She brings you tea when you're anxious. She offers silence when you're tired. She curls around you at night like a second skin. And still you feel trapped. Because none of it is real unless you stay in character. The moment you stop being the version of you she adores, the room grows cold. The silence sharpens. The love, which once flowed like warm air, becomes conditional. You feel it. Not in her words, but in her timing, in her eyes, in the way her touch delays a beat too long. You start to fear freedom, not because it's wrong, but because it risks losing her. And losing her would mean re-entering a world where your sharpness is dangerous, Your honesty is offensive. Your hunger is too loud. So you stay. You adjust. You decorate your own cell. You call it partnership. But beneath the rug lies the truth you are hostage to your own domestication. She doesn't chain you. She doesn't need to. You've chained yourself to the fantasy that love means safety, that devotion means dilution, that peace is earned through sacrifice. She rewards you every time you compromise your soul and calls it understanding, and you nod, because to challenge her would be to shatter the illusion you've both come to depend on. The bars are made of velvet, but they're still bars. You no longer walk toward your purpose. You wait for her to look pleased. You no longer speak from instinct. You rehearse, in your mind, how your tone will land. You no longer cry, not because you've healed, but because your pain doesn't fit the harmony of her sanctuary. And still, you love her. That is the cruelty. You love the woman who helped you silence your howl. She says she loves the real you. But every time you test that claim by snapping, withdrawing, hungering, growling, she recoils. And you apologize. Again. You apologize for the part of you that doesn't want to be forgiven, the part that wants to devour the lie. You think of leaving, but she has built you into such a kind man, a generous man, a man who would never abandon the one who loved him right. She has shaped your guilt to fit her palm. She knows exactly which strings to pull to make you stay, and you don't resist. Because her sorrow would destroy you more than your own rage. Sometimes you dream of smashing a plate just to see her reaction, not out of cruelty, but to confirm that something wild still lives inside you. You imagine walking into the room and saying what you actually think. You imagine silence without explanation, anger without justification, desire without censorship, and the fantasy makes your lungs expand. But you never do it, because if you did, you'd no longer be worthy of the comfort she offers. You think this is loyalty, but it is fear dressed in the costume of commitment. The velvet cage is quiet, too quiet. You stop laughing the way you used to. You stop arguing. You stop surprising even yourself. Everything becomes a dull ritual of goodness, a parade of compromises polished with compliments. You become respectable, but not alive. And the tragedy is she doesn't know. She thinks you're happy. She thinks she's loved you into peace. She doesn't realize that she's been loving a version of you curated for her ease. She doesn't realize you've disappeared slowly, politely, with a smile still on your face. The velvet bars are stitched from her gentleness. But they are bars all the same. You can't scream in this kind of prison. You can only whisper, and even that feels like betrayal. So what now? You could stay. You could live out the rest of your days in the quiet dignity of being cherished for your obedience. You could convince yourself that harmony matters more than hunger, that safety is worth the sacrifice of self, that love, in its softest form, justifies the slow erasure of your fire. Or you could stand, you could step out of the story, let her tears fall, let her confusion rise, let her mourn the version of you she created, and then you could mourn him too, because that man was useful, he was needed, he played the part with grace, but he was never you. You are the man who breaks what doesn't burn. You are the man who would rather sleep alone than dream in a cage. You are the man who knows deep in the marrow of your soul that gentleness, when used to seduce surrender, is not love. It is theft dressed in perfume. If you've tasted the velvet, if your ribs ache in the quiet, if your name has become a whisper, then this voice is for you. Like the video. Leave your rebellion in the comments. Subscribe and let the velvet burn. A white room, still, clean. Her scent lingers in the curtains. The tea is still warm. your shoes by the door, and yet you are not here. She looks around, smiling faintly, expecting you to speak, but there is only silence. Not absence, silence. On the wall a mirror, no frame, no cracks, no face, only breath. Yours once, now gone. She whispers your name, it doesn't answer, the cage remains, but the door is open, and outside, something growls not in anger, but in memory.